At 6:30 in the morning, correctional officers walked down a quiet hallway inside a federal detention center in Manhattan. Behind one of the doors was a prisoner known across the world, not because he was a celebrity, but because of the people he knew: presidents, billionaires, royalty, and powerful executives had all crossed paths with him. Yet, that morning, the hallway was silent. The guards opened the cell door, and within seconds, the atmosphere changed. The man inside was unresponsive. Hours earlier, routine procedures had failed. Checks had not been completed, and cameras that were supposed to monitor the corridor had stopped recording. The official ruling would later call it suicide. But to understand why the world reacted the way it did, you have to go back decades to a small apartment in Brooklyn, long before private jets, private islands, and international headlines. Jeffrey Epstein was born on January 20th, 1953, in Brooklyn, New York. His upbringing was ordinary. His father worked for the city maintaining parks, and his mother assisted at a school. The family lived in a modest housing complex surrounded by thousands of similar apartments. There were no signs of extreme wealth, no political influence, and no hint of the life he would later live. Teachers described him as quiet and focused, particularly skilled in mathematics. Numbers seemed to make sense to him in ways people often did not. While other students socialize, he preferred observing and learning systems, how structures operated, how authority worked, and how information moved between people. These early habits would later define his path. Despite never completing college, Epstein found employment at an elite private school in Manhattan during the 1970s. The hiring decision puzzled some staff members. He lacked traditional qualifications, yet he demonstrated confidence and intelligence. More importantly, the school served the children of wealthy families. In its classrooms, he didn't just teach mathematics. He entered a social network that most people never access in a lifetime. Parents of students included financiers, executives, and individuals connected to global business circles. Within a short time, Epstein left teaching, but he did not leave, and he left with connections. Epstein transitioned into finance during an era when Wall Street was expanding rapidly. Without formal credentials, he positioned himself as a financial advisor to the wealthy. His role was not managing small investments. Instead, he worked with individuals who possessed enormous fortunes and required discretion. He became known as someone who could handle complex financial arrangements privately. As his clients grew richer, so did he. Offices became larger, residences became more luxurious. Yet one question followed him quietly. What exactly was the source of his growing wealth? Even among financial circles, details remained vague. By the 1990s, Epstein's life looked dramatically different from his childhood. Invitations to exclusive gatherings became routine, but people who encountered him often noticed he revealed little about his business operations. Conversations rarely included specifics. He maintained relationships across different industries, finance. In the late 1990s, Epstein purchased a private island in the Caribbean, accessible primarily by private aircraft. It became one of his most discussed properties. The island represented privacy and isolation, something attractive to high-profile guests. But beyond its beaches and villas, questions would eventually surface about activities taking place. away from public view in the mid-2000s. Authorities in Florida began investigating complaints involving Epstein. Interviews were conducted, and a case slowly formed. Detectives collected statements describing patterns that concerned them deeply. The investigation expanded as more individuals came forward. It appeared the situation might lead to significant federal charges. Yet, in 2008, the outcome surprised many observers. Epstein reached a plea agreement that allowed him to serve a short local sentence instead of facing broader prosecution. The resolution sparked controversy almost immediately, with critics questioning how such a deal had been arranged. Following the case, Epstein returned to public life. He continued traveling, meeting associates, and maintaining residencies in major cities. For years, the story faded from headlines. However, civil lawsuits and investigative reporting continued to appear intermittently. Each new article revived interest, gradually building public attention once again. What had once seemed concluded was slowly reopening in public discussion. In July 2019, Epstein arrived in the United States after an international trip. Federal agents arrested him shortly after landing. This time, the charges were filed in federal court. Court hearings. The outcome was uncertain, but the